Okay, so here's what we know on day 140 in Ukraine. I'm going to start here. Russia claims that this is Pravda, Russian newspaper. Russia claims to have liquidated more than 350 Ukrainian fighters at a shipyard in Nikolaev. Okay, so they say they've killed these number of personnel, eliminated 20 units of military equipment. The Ukrainian army says this is nonsense, and unless it's verified somehow, I would tend to agree once it's verified. Now, we all agree on something like this. Several eastern Ukrainian towns shelled as Russia pushes for full control of the Donbas. Ukrainian officials said that they continue to do this. Russians are deliberately turning Donbas into ashes, said Surya Hayde. He's the governor of Luhansk, the area that was just recently captured in total. Bakhmut faced heavy shelling as the current focus of Russia's offensive, said the head of the Donetsk Regional Military Administration. And that's verified again. That's Radio Free Europe. Here's the Guardian saying essentially the same thing. Bakhmut is being just obliterated, and it's likely being hit extra hard as a retaliation for U.S. HIMARS attacks in other regions. The Donetsk governor said that Russian forces were constantly shelling the entire free territory of Donetsk, with Bakhmut district suffering the most. Okay, so what are we talking about? We are talking about, so this was Severodonetsk, which was in the news like 2 weeks ago. It was about to fall and then fell. Then Lysychansk over here you can't see. Let me highlight a little bit in here. Lysychansk fell, and the Russians have been steadily making gains. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll go a week back. So this is what the ground that they've taken in a week. Watch this. So just look at the red. 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're making these incremental gains, and they're moving forward, but they're shelling here in Bakhmut and Sloviansk, and they eventually want to take this ground, including Kramatorsk, and take all of the Donbas region, including all of Donetsk. Large columns of Russian equipment recorded in Melitopol moving toward Herzen. The mayor said, hey, look, we saw these about 40 pieces of equipment transferred, large columns. What are we talking about? Where is this? So here is Melitopol, and it's been held by Russia for almost since the beginning of the war, like shortly thereafter, at headquarters of a Russian army unit. Okay, and it's heading toward Herzen. Why? Because this is where the pressure is from the Ukrainians as they're shelling and going to be attacking. So they're moving their forces this way. The foreign policy report here I thought was really great in helping us understand what's going on. Ukraine is bringing a big gun to a knife fight. Okay, you say don't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? Well, they're bringing HIMARS, and HIMARS are having a significant impact. Ukrainian troops knocked out 14 ammunition dumps in June, and it's getting just even better in July, more recently. Early in the war, this was a great quote. I actually grabbed this from my book as I'm updating things. Early in the war, it left long, vulnerable supply convoys that were ravaged by Ukrainian sneak attacks during the Kyiv offensive. Remember in the first few days, like that huge column 40 miles long that just kept getting hammered? Okay, now the Russians are facing the same sort of ambush from afar with HIMARS. And so they weren't expecting that. U.S. and European officials have been impressed by Ukraine's selection of targets and their ability to hit things with HIMARS. Ukrainian officials said there are not enough of them in the front. Yeah, they have 8 of 12 that have been promised by Washington. And the sad thing is that, where is it? Here it is. Kyiv has asked for 300 multiple rocket systems, and they've gotten 12 so far from the U.S. And I think the U.S. was taking a wait and see look. Are you going to be able to make this work? And I think it'll start flowing a little bit more freely shortly. They have not gotten Army Tactical Missile Systems, ATACMS, but these things can hit 200 miles away. But the Biden administration is worried that Ukraine's going to hit inside of Russia, and so they haven't been giving them those weapons, which is unfortunate because um, I think Ukraine knows that they need to still be the victim, not seen by the world as the aggressor, hitting innocents or something along those lines. And they have been a legit innocent victim here as far as that goes. Okay, but that's what's going on here. Ukraine says ships pass through the Danube River mouth, sparking hopes on grain exports. And this is the big thing today. It's all about grain today. We know that there's a food crisis. This is a Reuters article, and it was talking about how the increase in grain exports, the blockade of the Black Sea is creating this huge food crisis, but they're going to be trying to use the Danube River. And so only 4 ships could be received per day along the Sulana route, while a rate of 8 per day was needed. Now, what's going on? What are we talking about? Okay, so this is Ukraine up here. This is Odessa in the southwest, and Ukraine's territory actually extends all the way down here, bordering Romania. Okay, this is border of Moldova. This is Transnistria, something in this neighborhood here. This is Moldova and Romania. This is the Danube River. They can enter here or they can enter here. And now that Snake Island has been captured somewhere out here, the Russians don't hold it, so they can actually move ships around, and so they can get them onto the Danube. Okay, here's Galat. I've actually set foot in the Danube from Galat. Galati is pronounced Galat. It's in Romania, just across from Moldova. I almost lost a shoe doing that. It was kind of embarrassing, but I want to say I stood in the Danube. Anyway, it was kind of muddy. So if they can get their ships up here, that's great, because if you look at the map, look, the Danube goes through past Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, Hungary, Slovakia, Austria, into Germany. I mean, all the way over to almost to Switzerland. So I mean, if they can do that, they can get a lot of their grain out. Going over the truck routes, over the land route to the Baltic to get it out was terrible. Okay. More than 130 grain ships are stuck in the Black Sea as talks start in Istanbul. So there's a traffic jam of more than 130 cargo ships loaded with Ukrainian grain in the Black Sea. Again, they're kind of locked by, we can't go anywhere near the Russian ships. And if you here's the same map of what I was just talking about. They can come this way and through a canal into the Danube, or they can come here. And you can actually see this based on the transponders. There's like a satellite imagery based on the transponders. It was fascinating to see. And so that's, yeah, they're trying to get out. Now, at the same time, Turkey is dealing with talks with Ukraine and Russia and Turkey and the UN, trying to create some kind of passageway for these Ukrainian ships to get out so that they can alleviate what is a looming food crisis. Zelensky said, "We're indeed making significant efforts to restore the supply of food." The UN Secretary General said this was a critical step forward. Dmytro Kuleba, the Ukrainian foreign minister, said that we're 2 steps away from an agreement with Russia. It's necessary to resolve security issues related to Russia's position. We are in the final phase, and now everything depends on Russia. If they really want to, grain exports will begin soon, and that's great news, because there is a looming food crisis, and millions of people in poor countries far away, Africa, Asia, even Latin America, will starve because of this lack of food, because the world is dependent on it. If they use this to continue playing their Hunger Games, he said, they will continue to insist on the importance of negotiations. So look for that. I mean, this is really something to flag. And here, why is Turkey involved? Well, because anything in the Black Sea, any exports from the Black Sea, like here's Ukraine's up here, and Russia, Georgia, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, that have to pass through here, through Istanbul, in order to get out to the Mediterranean to get their food out. So that's why Turkey's involved, because Turkey controls, it goes right through their territory. So that's what's going on there. Okay. Iran, this article really surprised me. Iran responds to U.S. claims of drone shipments to Russia. There's some talk of like hundreds of drones coming from Iran to Russia. And the Iranians were saying, look, we have different kinds of cooperation with Russia, including the defense sector. We are not going to help either side in this conflict because we believe that it has to be stopped. I was surprised by that. I would have thought that Iran would have been a pretty hardened ally, just like North Korea and Syria and things like that. Tehran said, we will avoid any action that could lead to escalation. Good on Iran. I mean, I don't get to say that very often, but good for them. Putin is planning to travel to Tehran on July 19th, so that might change. In other news, not yesterday, today, July 13th, Russia filtration operations, forced disappearances and mass deportations of Ukrainian citizens. So Anthony Blinken makes a statement talking about what's been going on, what the Ukrainians have been claiming about these filtration camps. The United States calls on Russia to immediately halt the systemic filtration operations. These are basically like concentration camps of Ukrainians that they're deporting to Russia. And the estimates vary, but Russian authorities have interrogated, detained, and forcibly deported 900,000 to 1.6 million Ukrainian citizens. That is, they capture these people that are in Russian-held Ukrainian territory and ship them off to parts of Russia. Now, some of the people want to go. Okay, some of the people are like Russian-speaking Ukrainians that want to get out of Dodge, and that's different. I'm not talking about that, and I don't even mind that. I'm sure Ukraine does, but that's different if they're in that category. But when it's forced, that's different, and when it's children, that's terrible. President Putin's filtration operations are separating families, confiscating Ukrainian passports, and issuing Russian passports in an effort to change the demographic makeup of parts of Ukraine. Look, like I said, I don't mind if they're Ukrainian citizens who want to go to Russia. Get out. Just get out. Go. But if it's forcible, or like in some places they have to take Russian passports in order to work or that kind of thing, that's terrible. Eyewitnesses, survivors, and Ukrainian's general prosecutor have reported that Russian authorities have transported tens of thousands of people to these facilities. President Putin and his government, says Blinken, will not be able to engage in these systematic abuses with impunity. Well, Putin tends to think he can. Now, I was just talking about how RT, I was like, wow, RT carried this article. Here's Pravda. Pravda is also Russian state-sponsored news. Russian Foreign Ministry on Blinken's remarks. This is a mental case. So, Maria Zakharova, who is the Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, said she is off after reading about Blinken's remarks. She said she's off to consult a medical encyclopedia. A case like this one should be described somewhere, she wrote on Telegram. Nice. Keep it classy, Maria. Okay. Now, so far, these people have been deported, but there's also been casualties. I mean, civilian casualties, daily bombings of civilian centers. So far, 1,000 children have been casualties. I mean, get your mind around that. 349 killed, more than 652 injured that we know of. So it's actually probably higher than what we actually know of. 1,000 children. That is despicable. That's unfortunate. That's terrible. And we need this to stop. It's one thing if your army is shooting at the other army, sending missiles, shooting weapons. I mean, I don't want it. I don't like it. But soldiers are soldiers. That's different than innocent children whose lives are cut short, and this is despicable. Okay, Brazil announces this. Just a few other news items that I thought were interesting, and we'll be done. Brazil wants to buy as much diesel as it can from Russia. This is according to Reuters. We have to make sure that we have enough diesel for Brazilian agribusiness and, of course, Brazilian drivers. And so that's why we're looking for safe, reliable suppliers of diesel. Venezuela is right around the corner. But look, he said this: Russia is a strategic partner of Brazil. We are partners at BRICS. So the BRICS are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They're these aspiring nations that want to have instead of a unipolar U.S. and NATO dominated kind of world, they want to have a bipolar world where there's a counterbalance economically, and that's really not cool, because the money that they're spending here is going to go and pay for Putin to continue to do what he's doing. Okay, finally, this is the last one. North Korea recognizes Donbas. Keeping it classy, North Korea. So North Korea is only the third. This is a RT report, but I also believe the veracity of this. North Korea has been the third UN member to recognize the independence of Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. Those are the breakaway regions on February 24th. Putin recognized, or February 23rd, Putin recognized them before he invaded them, recognized them as their own independent countries. Part of Ukraine, no longer. And then Syria did about a month ago, and now North Korea is adding that. So that's kind of like, you know who you are by who your friends are, and that's kind of what's going on here. Pushlin, the head of the Donetsk People's Republic, this breakaway, he's self-appointed from this breakaway republic, said that he had earlier confirmed the development of this Telegram channel and called it another victory for our diplomacy. I'm not sure that this is great company to be keeping, but that's where we are. It is day 140. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you tomorrow.